Oh, hi! This week, I'm going to show you guys what the beer making process looks like. At least on the small homebrew kit that my friend Rockwell has. He was nice enough to let me use his brew kit, aka he did all the work, I just paid for the beer. And I filmed a bunch of it and I thought I would show you the process. We made a Belgian ale named Brew. Very clever naming on Rockwell's part. I have a bottle of it right here and I haven't tried it yet and I'm so excited to see how it came out. But first, let's check out what the brew day looked like. Let me set the scene. It was Memorial Day 2017. It was cold and rainy, which is actually kind of good because last year when we brewed beer, it was way too fucking hot. We dumped a bunch of shit out of a box onto a counter, arranged it so it was Instagram worthy. Things I have learned from the few times I've brewed beer. It's a lot of standing around and watching water boil, and then a lot of standing around and getting the water to stop boiling, and then once again standing around and waiting for the water to boil. That weird little sock thing is full of grains that are getting steeped for however long the recipe called for. Then it was time to add all the malt, which for how light the beer was that we were making, there was a fuckload of malt. There's both the syrup and the powder, which if you're dumping the bag of the powdered malt in and the steam from the pot hits the edges of the bag as it's coming out, it kind of like crystallizes on the side and turns into a weird cotton candy that actually tastes really good because it's mostly sugary. Then there were 3 different hop additions at different points in the boil, and then we dumped the whole thing into a different bucket, and then it stayed in the fermentation bucket and got this cool little contraption on top. I couldn't possibly figure out what it's called, but it just indicates when the fermentation is done because while it's still fermenting, it releases little bubbles in there, and that's how you know that the yeast is still partying down in the beer. Oh, we definitely added just a bunch of crystallized sugar at some point. So yes, brewing day took a couple hours. It actually seemed more streamlined than the first time I brewed with Rockwell, but it may just be because he's done it a handful of times and this was my 3rd batch of beer I've made. Then it was a matter of waiting for that little air bubble thing to stop bubbling, which actually took a lot longer than both of us expected. That yeast was going crazy for like 3+ weeks, maybe 4. The first 2 beers I made, it was less than 2 weeks. I went back down to do bottling, which is very tedious. For a small batch is actually kind of fun. I really like the assembly line, me, Rockwell, and my other friend Ross. I really enjoy using the little wand that fills up the bottles. It's not like it's backbreaking work, and I get to hang out with 2 of my best guy friends, so it was fine. So here we are. It's been another couple of weeks. I don't know if I filmed us adding the sugar to the bucket, but that sugar that was boiling in the pan went in here and that was going to carbonate everything. All the bottles have had to sit at about room temperature for a couple of weeks because if you refrigerate these as soon as they bottle them, it's not going to carbonate. So you got to keep it warm enough that the yeast will be like, ooh, sugar, and get all bubbly. Fingers crossed this actually makes the like noise because that means that it did carbonate. This is a total science experiment right now. I don't know what the noise is going to be like. I don't know what this is going to taste like. Here we go. Prepare yourselves. Yeah! It smells Belgian-y. That's a very vague description. It doesn't smell really, really bitter like the IPAs that I usually go for. There's no like fruity thing going on. There is a label on here, but I promise it's a homebrew. It's not just a beer I found at the store. Now the actual moment of truth. Oh, interesting. It's not bad. It has like a wicked banana smell right before it hits your mouth. And the one fucking style of beer that I do not like are Hefeweizens or anything that uses Hefeweizen yeast, which has that like banana clove flavor to it, which is sometimes used in Belgians. I specifically got a kit that didn't have that. It had more of a spicy yeast to it. So that freaked me out right as it was about to hit my lips because I was like, oh no, it's that flavor I hate. I will stick it out and finish pretty much any beer that I try, regardless of how like not into it I am, but I cannot do Hefeweizens. So I'm really glad that this doesn't have that like thing to it. I feel like it is a little banana-y, but not in the same way. I don't hate it. I'm very surprised. I had no idea what to expect because there's only so many descriptions on the kits and it's just a super basic kit from a homebrew shop. Oh, and speaking of the homebrew shop, this is not sponsored whatsoever, but there's a super cool store called Kettle to Keg in Pembroke, New Hampshire, and they were so helpful helping me pick out the right kit, and they even looked up the yeast that I didn't want to make sure that wasn't the one in the kit that I got. They also have so much inventory that you can build your own recipe, and this came with every single ingredient, a cool like step-by-step instruction and recipe on how to do everything and the timing of everything and how long to let stuff sit, and it even came with all of the crown caps that you can like pop onto the top of the bottles. The only thing it didn't come with is bottles, but like it's hard to pack 50 bottles into a box. I am pretty damn happy with this. I've only made IPAs other than this, and that is like my preferred beer style. For the most part, I'm not really picky. Like I said, as long as it's not fucking Hefeweizen. I'm sorry. Hefeweizen. So yeah, I know I haven't been doing the brewery tours the past couple months. I don't know how much interest there was on your guys' end to doing them. They were so cool for me to do, and I would like to do more. Just my life fell apart over the past year. So yeah, I thought this was a cool hobby to show you guys. I'm certainly not an expert. Like I said, I've only done it 3 times, but it's super fun and really not as scary and intimidating as I used to think it was. It's helpful to have engineer friends that can figure out shit that your brain can't comprehend.